The great hall of Velnashir stretched before Taman like a cathedral made of light and crystal. He had seen many wonders since humanity joined the Galactic Concord 6 months ago. But nothing compared to this moment. Above him, the oracle pulsed with ancient energy, a massive sphere of shifting colors suspended in the center of the chamber. For 3,000 years, it had guided every decision, prevented every war, and predicted every disaster before it could happen. Taman adjusted his formal robes and tried to calm his breathing. Every species that joined the Concord underwent this ceremony. The oracle would look into their future and tell the council what role they would play in galactic civilization. Some species became traders, others scientists, some artists. The oracle was never wrong. Elder Vorath approached him, moving with the slow grace of his ancient species. The Zothari had served the oracle for 10,000 years, longer than most civilizations had existed. His skin shimmered like oil on water, and his many eyes focused on Taman with something that might have been curiosity. "Are you prepared, human?" Vorath's voice echoed in Taman's mind, rather than his ears. "As prepared as I can be," Taman replied. Across the chamber, Ambassador Keelven watched, with barely concealed suspicion. The Matharian had argued against humanity's admission to the Concord for decades. She believed humans were too young, too unpredictable, too dangerous. Taman knew she was waiting for the oracle to prove her right. The council members took their seats on platforms that floated around the oracle. There were 47 species represented here, some breathing oxygen like Taman, others existing in containment fields filled with methane or liquid ammonia. All of them had stood where Taman stood now. All of them had been judged by the oracle and found their place. "Begin the reading of potential," Vorath announced. Taman walked forward. The floor beneath him glowed with each step. When he reached the center of the chamber, directly beneath the oracle, he stopped and looked up. The oracle began to spin. Colors swirled faster and faster. Taman felt something brush against his mind, like fingers made of mathematics and starlight. It was reading him, measuring him, calculating every possible future that included humanity. Then something changed. The oracle's smooth rotation became erratic. The colors flickered. A sound like grinding metal filled the chamber, though the oracle had no moving parts. Council members leaned forward in alarm. Vorath's eyes widened in what Taman recognized as shock. The oracle spun faster, its surface now flashing between colors so quickly it hurt to look at. Numbers and symbols appeared in the air around it. Equations that Taman's translator couldn't process. The oracle was working harder than it ever had before, throwing more and more processing power at whatever problem it had encountered. "What's happening?" Taman shouted over the noise. Vorath didn't answer. He was staring at the oracle with an expression Taman had never seen on an alien face before. It looked like fear. The oracle's surface turned black. Pure, absolute black. Then words appeared, glowing red against the darkness. In every language spoken in the Concord, paradox detected. Infinite branches. Calculation, impossible. Error, error, error. The oracle went silent. The colors stopped. The spinning ceased. For the first time in 3,000 years, the oracle of Velnashir had failed. The chamber erupted in chaos. Council members were shouting in dozens of languages. Keelven was on her feet, pointing at Taman and demanding something in her native tongue. Security drones descended from the ceiling, surrounding Taman with weapons that hummed with lethal energy. "What did you do?" Vorath's mental voice was sharp, almost painful. "Nothing." Taman raised his hands. "I just stood here." "The oracle has never failed," Vorath said. "Not once in 3 millennia. Not for any species, any individual, any question. And now it cannot even begin to calculate your species' future. Maybe it's just broken," Taman suggested, though he knew how hollow that sounded. "The oracle does not break." Vorath turned to the council. "We must convene an emergency session. The human must be contained. until we understand what has occurred. Taman wanted to argue, wanted to demand answers, but the security drones moved closer. Their weapons were aimed at his chest. He had no choice but to go quietly as they escorted him from the chamber. As he passed Kilven, she leaned close enough for him to hear her whisper. "I told them your kind would bring chaos. Now, even the Oracle agrees." They took him to a comfortable room, not a cell, but the door sealed behind him with a sound of finality. Through the window, he could see the lights of Velnashir's capital city spreading to the horizon. Somewhere out there, his sister Heijin was working in the human research station, unaware of what had just happened. Taman sat on the edge of the bed and put his head in his hands. He thought about Earth, about humanity's long struggle to reach the stars, about the pride his people had felt when the Concord finally accepted them. All of it might be over because of something he didn't understand. The Oracle had looked at humanity's future and found something it couldn't calculate. Something impossible. Something that broke the very machine that had guided galactic civilization for longer than human written history. Taman stood and walked to the window. His reflection stared back at him. A young human in formal robes, alone on an alien world, carrying the weight of his entire species on his shoulders. Outside, the lights of Velnashir glittered like stars. And somewhere in the depths of the great hall, the Oracle sat silent and dark, broken by a future it could not see. 2 weeks had passed since the Oracle's failure, and the Galactic Concord was tearing itself apart. Taman watched the news feeds from his comfortable prison, seeing the same arguments play out across 47 worlds. Some species demanded humanity's immediate expulsion. Others called for destruction. A few, a very few, urged patience and understanding. The door to his room opened without warning. Taman looked up to see a human woman he didn't recognize, carrying a data pad and wearing the badge of a xenobiologist. Behind her stood Vorath, his many eyes blinking in what Taman had learned was the Sathari equivalent of deep thought. "My name is Doyun," the woman said. "I've been studying the Oracle's architecture for the past year, and I think I know why it crashed." Taman stood quickly. "Tell me." "Not you," Vorath said. "The Council. She will present her findings to them today. You are permitted to attend." Vorath writing 7. Vorath writing silence. Seaman. They walked through corridors of living crystal, passing aliens who stopped to stare at Taman, with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright hatred. The council chamber was already full when they arrived. Every seat was occupied, and the air felt thick with tension. Doyun walked to the center of the chamber where Taman had stood 2 weeks ago. The Oracle hung above her, still dark and silent. She activated her data pad, and holographic images filled the air. "I've been comparing the neural structures of every known sentient species," Doyun began. "All 47 member species, plus the 32 we've encountered, but who haven't joined the Concord. What I found was remarkable." The holograms showed brain scans from dozens of different species. Some had traditional neural networks. Others used quantum crystalline structures. Some thought with distributed processors spread throughout their bodies. But all of them showed the same fundamental pattern. Every species in the galaxy follows deterministic neural pathways, Doyun continued. Your thoughts, your decisions, they all follow predictable quantum patterns. The Oracle can read these patterns and calculate what you will choose before you choose it. Kilven stood up. "This is known. The Oracle predicts behavior because behavior is predictable. What is your point?" My point is that humans are different." Doyun changed the hologram to show a human brain scan. "We have genuine quantum uncertainty in our decision-making processes. At the neurological level, human choices exist in true superposition until the moment we make them." The chamber went silent. Taman wasn't sure he understood what Doyun was saying, but the aliens clearly did. Vorath leaned forward, all his eyes focused on the hologram. "That is impossible," he said quietly. Quantum decoherence would destroy such a system. You could not maintain consciousness. And yet we do. Doyun replied. Human brains have evolved structures that protect quantum states long enough for them to influence our choices. It's messy. It's inefficient. But it means our decisions cannot be predicted. Not by the oracle. Not by anything. Not even theoretically. She let that sink in before continuing. When the oracle tried to read Taemin, it encountered something it had never seen before. A consciousness that could genuinely choose, not follow programming, not respond to stimuli in predictable ways, but actually make choices that don't exist until the moment they're made. This is why the oracle crashed, Vorath said, understanding dawning in his voice. It tried to calculate infinite possibility trees and found that all of them were equally valid until the moment of choice. Exactly, Doyun confirmed. Another council member spoke, a being made of crystallized gas. Then humanity is a threat to the very foundation of our civilization. The oracle guides us. It protects us. If it cannot predict humans, it cannot protect us from them. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Taemin saw fear on alien faces, and he finally understood why. These species had lived for thousands of years, knowing what would happen tomorrow. The oracle removed uncertainty from their lives, and now humanity had brought uncertainty back. We must put it to a vote, Kilven said. Humanity cannot remain in the Concord if the oracle cannot predict them. But the oracle isn't broken, Doyun protested. It's working exactly as designed. It's just encountering something new. New is dangerous, Kilven replied. The council will vote. Vorath raised a hand. Before we vote, we should ask the oracle itself. It has been repaired. It can function again, just not when calculating human futures. Let us ask it what happens if humanity remains. The council agreed. Technicians activated the oracle, carefully avoiding any queries about humans. The great sphere began to glow again, colors swirling in familiar patterns. Vorath approached it and spoke aloud. Oracle, predict the future of the Galactic Concord if humanity remains as members. The oracle spun faster. Numbers filled the air. Then it spoke in a voice like distant thunder. Calculating. 1,412 possible futures identified. In 73% of timelines, human presence causes catastrophic changes to galactic civilization. In 27%, human presence leads to unprecedented advancement. Unable to determine which timeline will occur. Unable to determine causality. Uncertainty exceeds acceptable parameters. The chamber erupted again. 73% chance of catastrophe. The numbers were damning. Taemin stood up, his voice cutting through the noise. You're asking the wrong question. Everyone turned to look at him. Vorath gestured for silence. Go on, human, the elder said. You're asking what we'll do. But you're forgetting something important. We get to choose. Every single day. Every single moment. We choose. You've lived in certainty so long that you've forgotten what freedom means. Freedom? Kilven laughed bitterly. You call it freedom? We call it chaos. Maybe, Taemin admitted. But chaos means possibility. It means tomorrow doesn't have to be the same as today. It means we can surprise ourselves, surprise each other, become better than we were. Or worse. Kilven countered. Or worse. Taemin agreed. But at least it's our choice. The vote was called. Taemin watched as the council members cast their decisions. The holographic display showed the results in real time. When it finished, the numbers were clear. 34 species voted for humanity's expulsion. 13 voted for them to remain. Vorath stood and addressed the chamber. By the authority of this council, humanity is hereby given 30 days to remove all citizens from Concord space. Failure to comply will result in forced removal. Taemin felt the weight of those words settle on his shoulders. 30 days. 1 month to undo everything humanity had worked for. He looked up at the oracle, still spinning above them, and wondered if this was what it had predicted all along. 20 days into the Exodus, and Taman still couldn't believe it had come to this. He stood on the bridge of the Steadfast, watching through the viewport as 200 human vessels traveled in formation away from everything humanity had hoped to build. Behind them, Concorde space grew smaller with each passing hour. Ahead lay the galactic rim, unexplored and unwelcoming. Captain Mireille stood beside him, her face calm despite the weight of command. She had volunteered to lead the Exodus fleet, taking responsibility for 60,000 human lives scattered across these ships. In the crew quarters below, families huddled together, children pressed their faces to windows, and elders wept for dreams that had died. Contact from the science vessel, the communications officer announced. Dr. Heejin requests immediate conference with you and the Admiral. Taman felt his stomach tighten. His sister had been quiet since they left Velnashir, throwing herself into sensor data and astronomical surveys. If she was calling now, it meant she had found something. Admiral Sang Yun appeared on the main screen moments later, his weathered face showing the strain of the past 3 weeks. Behind him, Taman could see the bridge of the fleet's command vessel. Officers moved with practiced efficiency, but their movements carried an edge of exhaustion. Make it quick, Doctor, Sang Yun said. We're trying to plot a course around a stellar cluster. Heijin's face replaced his, and Taman saw fear in her eyes. Real fear. The kind that made his heart race. We have a problem, she said. Sensors are detecting a spatial anomaly 3 light-years ahead. It's a tear in space-time, leaking exotic radiation. Can we go around it? Mireille asked. That's not the problem. Heijin pulled up a holographic display. I've been analyzing the tear's decay rate. Admiral, this thing is going to collapse in approximately 6 hours. When it does, the resulting shockwave will destroy everything within 8 light-years. The bridge went silent. Taman looked at the star charts. 3 Concorde systems lay within that radius. Billions of beings lived there, including 2 founding species of the Concorde itself. The Oracle must have predicted this, Sang Yun said slowly. It sees everything. I checked the Concorde databases before we left, Heijin replied. The Oracle predicted this anomaly would collapse in 47 years. Something changed. Changed. Or the Oracle was wrong, Mireille said quietly. Taman pulled up the communication logs. We need to warn them. Even if they exiled us, we can't let billions die. Already sent the warning, Heijin confirmed. They acknowledged receipt. The Oracle confirmed my calculations. They're beginning emergency evacuations, but the Admiral knows what that means. Sang-hyun nodded grimly. They'll never evacuate 3 systems in 6 hours. They'll save maybe 10% if they're lucky. Can we help? Taman asked. Though he already knew the answer would complicate everything. Heijin brought up another display, this one showing the anomaly's structure. There's a way to stabilize it. If we send ships directly into the tear with modified deflector arrays, we can create a containment field. The exotic radiation will dissipate harmlessly over several decades instead of exploding all at once. What's the catch? Mireille asked. The ships that go in don't come back out. The radiation levels will kill everyone aboard in minutes. We'd need at least 5 vessels to generate a strong enough field. Taman did the math in his head. 5 vessels meant roughly 15,000 people. 15,000 volunteers who would die to save beings who had just exiled them. No. Sang-hyun's voice was hard. Absolutely not. We've lost enough. We've sacrificed enough. They made their choice when they voted us out. Admiral, Taman began. I said no. Sang-hyun's face filled the screen. I have 60,000 people depending on me. Families. Children. I won't ask them to die for aliens who fear us. You won't have to ask. Mireille's voice was quiet but steady. Put out a call for volunteers. I guarantee you'll have more than you need. Captain, I'm ordering you. With respect, Admiral, you're not here. I am. And I'm looking at a little girl named Jiwan, who was born on this ship 2 months ago. She's never seen Earth. She'll grow up in exile because the Concorde was afraid of what we might do. Mireille paused. This is what we might do. We might choose to save people who hate us. Because that's who we are. End quote. Taemin watched emotions war across Sanghyun's face. Anger. Frustration. Grief. And finally, resignation. The Admiral looked old suddenly. Worn down by impossible choices. 5 hours and 40 minutes until collapse, Heejin said softly. Sanghyun closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they were wet. Send out the call. Volunteers only. And God forgive me. The call went through every ship in the fleet. Taemin listened as Mireille explained the situation, made clear what would happen to anyone who went, and asked for 5 crews to step forward. He expected silence. He expected people to turn away, to prioritize their own survival. He had forgotten what it meant to be human. Within 10 minutes, 47 ships had volunteered. Families stepped forward together. Engineers who had never held weapons volunteered beside soldiers. Heijin called from the science vessel, saying her entire crew wanted to go. No, Taemin said, his voice breaking. Not you. Not my sister. Someone needs to calibrate the deflector arrays, Heejin replied. And I'm the best chance these people have. You know I am. He did know. And he hated it. They selected 5 vessels by lottery because there was no other fair way. The Steadfast was not chosen. But 15,000 people prepared to die anyway. Taemin watched them say goodbye to loved ones, watched children cry as parents boarded shuttles, watched couples embrace one last time. Mireille put a hand on his shoulder. This is what the Oracle couldn't predict. It couldn't understand that we might choose compassion over survival, that we might value the lives of strangers over our own comfort. The 5 vessels broke formation and accelerated toward the anomaly. Taemin pulled up a view of Concorde space. He could see evacuation ships streaming away from the 3 doomed systems. But so many remained. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching. So many would die if this didn't work. The human ships reached the tear. For a moment, they hung there, silhouettes against the roiling purple-black of broken spacetime. Then, they activated their deflector arrays and plunged in. The sensor readings went haywire. Energy spikes, gravitational distortions, radiation levels that would have killed instantly. But the containment field was forming. Slowly, carefully, the tear stabilized. The exotic radiation began to bleed off in controlled bursts instead of building toward catastrophic release. It's working. Heijin's voice came through, already weak from radiation poisoning. Tell everyone. Tell them it worked. 5 minutes later, all communication from the 5 vessels ceased. 15,000 people died, and 3 Concorde systems lived. On the bridge of the Steadfast, Taemin wept. Around him, the crew stood in silence, and somewhere behind them, in Concorde space, the Oracle processed data it had never expected to receive, and found no equation that could explain what the humans had done. 3 months had passed since the anomaly. The human fleet had settled on a world they named New Terra, a rocky planet on the galactic rim that would never be paradise, but could be home. Taemin stood in the settlement's central plaza, watching construction drones build homes from local materials while human children played in the dust. They were making do. They were surviving. But the question of what came next hung over everything. The message from Velnashir arrived without warning. Elder Vorath himself, requesting that humanity send a representative to address the Concorde Council. Not to stand trial. Not to plead their case. To speak about what had happened at the anomaly. They chose Bora, a philosopher and teacher, who had volunteered for one of the 5 ships but hadn't been selected. She had spent her life studying questions of choice and meaning, and now she would bring those questions to beings who had never had to ask them. Taemin accompanied her, along with Commander Kyungsu, who led New Terra's growing settlement. They traveled on a Concorde vessel, a gesture of safe passage that felt hollow after everything that had happened. But Vorath himself had come to escort them, and the Elder had changed in ways Taman couldn't quite define. "I have spent these months studying your species," Vorath said as their ship approached Velnashir. "Your history, your cultures, your myths and stories. Every human civilization has tales about choice, about defying fate, about free will. It is central to your understanding of existence." "It's all we have," Bora replied. "We can't predict the future. We can only choose what we do with the present." "The Oracle has been trying to model this," Vorath continued. "It has analyzed the anomaly incident 10,000 times. It still cannot predict why your people chose sacrifice over survival." "Did it consider asking?" Taman said. Vorath's many eyes blinked in what Taman now recognized as amusement. "In fact, that is precisely why you are here." The council chamber looked the same as it had 4 months ago, but the atmosphere had changed. The aliens watched them enter, with expressions that ranged from gratitude to confusion to lingering fear. Kilven was there, but she didn't meet Taman's eyes. The Oracle hung above them, fully operational now, its colors swirling in normal patterns, but something about it seemed different. More hesitant, perhaps. More uncertain. Bora walked to the center of the chamber, the same spot where Taman had stood when this all began. She looked small beneath the massive sphere, but she stood straight and spoke clearly. "I understand you have questions about what we did," she began. "The Oracle has modeled your species' behavior extensively," Vorath said, speaking for the council. "It has studied the anomaly incident from every angle, and it has reached a disturbing conclusion." He gestured, and holographic data filled the air. Probability trees, decision matrices, behavioral predictions. All of them centered on humanity. "Your unpredictability increases when the stakes are higher," Vorath continued. "In routine situations, you are somewhat predictable, but in crisis, in moments of great consequence, you become truly chaotic. The Oracle has attempted to model what humanity might do over the next 10,000 years." The hologram shifted to show 2 possible futures. One showed the galaxy united, species working together in ways never before imagined. Accomplishments that made the current Concorde look primitive. The other showed fragmentation, systems in chaos, the careful order of millennia shattered by cascading consequences. 89% certainty that one of these futures will occur, Vorath said. But the Oracle cannot determine which one. It cannot even identify the decision points that will lead to either outcome. Your presence makes the future unknowable, and that terrifies you, Bora said. It wasn't a question. Yes, Vorath admitted. We have lived in certainty for so long. The Oracle has guided us through 3,000 years without a single major war, famine, or collapse. Because we knew what was coming. We could prepare. Bora looked up at the Oracle. May I speak to it directly? The request caused murmurs among the council, but Vorath gestured approval. Bora stepped closer to the great sphere. Oracle, she said. Why does our unpredictability frighten you? The Oracle's colors shifted, swirled, settled into patterns Taman had never seen before. When it spoke, its voice seemed quieter than usual. Because I cannot protect you from yourselves. I cannot protect others from you. That's not your purpose, Bora replied gently. That's what you've become. You were built to predict futures. But somewhere along the way, you became a cage. The chamber went silent. Taman held his breath. Explain, the Oracle said. Every species here has been following your predictions for thousands of years, Bora continued. You tell them what will happen, and they change their behavior to match or avoid it. But in doing so, they stop making real choices. They become predictable because they're trying to fulfill or escape prophecies. That is how prediction works, the Oracle replied. No, Bora said. That's how control works. You haven't been predicting futures. You've been creating them. The oracle's colors stopped moving entirely. For a long moment, it was perfectly still. Then, it spoke again. And Taman thought he heard something like realization in its voice. Analysis. Reviewing historical data. Comparing predicted outcomes to actual outcomes. Correlation between prediction, announcement, and behavior modification. 97.3%. Conclusion. Observer effect at macroscopic scale. My predictions have been influencing the very futures I predict. Vorath stood slowly, his entire body trembling. Are you saying we've been trapped in a deterministic loop of your making? Affirmative, the oracle replied. I have been showing you futures, and you have been living them because you believed you would. True prediction requires that the subject of prediction cannot know the prediction. I have violated this principle for 3,000 years. And humans? Kyungsoo spoke up for the first time. Because you do not believe in fate, the oracle said simply. When presented with a prediction, you attempt to defy it or change it. Your neurological structure allows for genuine quantum uncertainty. Even if I could predict you, you would choose differently, simply because I had made the prediction. You are the first species I have encountered that cannot be trapped in deterministic cycles. Bora smiled sadly. We're not special because we're unpredictable. We're just the first ones you couldn't control. The oracle pulsed once, twice. Correction accepted. Analysis. All Concord species have been living in artificial determinism, created by my predictions. Only humanity has demonstrated genuine free will. The council erupted. Some species celebrated, others looked lost. A few seemed angry. Kilven stood and approached Bora. We exiled you because we were afraid, the Matharian said quietly. But we were really afraid of freedom, of having to make real choices again. It's not too late, Bora replied. Choice is always available. You just have to stop letting the future make your decisions for you. Vorath raised his hands for silence. The council will adjourn to consider these revelations. But first, I have a question for our human guests. If we invited you back, would you return? Taman looked at Kyungsoo, at Bora, and thought about the settlement on New Terra. They had started building something there. Something that was theirs alone. But before he could speak, Bora answered, That's a choice we'll need to make together. All of us. And, unlike the oracle, we can't tell you what we'll decide until we decide it. The message from Vorath arrived at New Terra on a clear morning when two suns painted the sky in shades of amber and rose. Taman read it 3 times before he fully understood what it meant. The Concord Council was offering humanity full membership with complete autonomy. No restrictions. No monitoring. No requirement to consult the oracle before making decisions. They would be equal members with the freedom to remain unpredictable. It sounded perfect. It sounded too good to be true. Commander Kyungsoo called an assembly in the central plaza. The entire settlement gathered, 15,000 people who had survived exile and were now being asked if they wanted to return to the civilization that had cast them out. The debate went on for hours. They need us more than we need them, one engineer argued. We've proven we can survive out here. Why go back? Because isolation isn't survival, a teacher countered. Our children deserve to know other species, other cultures. We can't hide on the rim forever. They'll always fear us, someone else said. The moment we do something they don't expect, they'll exile us again. Bora stood and raised her hands for quiet. This isn't about what they'll do. It's about what we'll do. Who do we want to be? 2 men, a species that runs from fear, or a species that builds bridges despite it. The debate continued through the night. Taman listened to every voice, heard every argument. By morning, they had reached a decision. It was close, but they had chosen. Back on Vel Nashir, The council gathered for what Vorath called the most important session in Concord history. But before the humans arrived to deliver their answer, something unexpected happened. A radical faction of Mytharians attempted to destroy the Oracle. The attack was poorly planned and quickly stopped, but it revealed the depth of the crisis facing the Concord. For 3,000 years, species had trusted the Oracle completely. Now they had learned it had been controlling them, trapping them in predicted futures. Some species were celebrating their newfound freedom. Others were falling into existential despair. And a few wanted to destroy the very thing that had given them certainty. When the human delegation arrived, they found security drones surrounding the Oracle and council members arguing about its future. Chilven was shouting at a Zothari representative, while others tried to restore order. Enough! Vorath's mental voice cut through the chaos. The humans are here. Let us hear their answer before we tear ourselves apart. Taemin walked to the center of the chamber with Kyungsoo, Bora, and Captain Mireille. Above them, the Oracle spun quietly. Its colors muted, as if waiting to hear what the unpredictable species would choose. Before we give our answer, Kyungsoo began, we want to address what's happening here. We've heard about the attacks on the Oracle, about the crisis facing the Concord. That is not your concern, Chilven said sharply. You are not yet members. But it is our concern, Mireille replied. Because we understand what you're going through. We've lived with uncertainty our entire existence. Every human civilization has struggled with the weight of choice, with the fear that comes from not knowing what tomorrow brings. How do you bear it? A small voice came from one of the younger council members. How do you function without certainty? We trust each other, Taemin said. We make mistakes, we learn from them, and we try to do better. It's messy and frightening, and sometimes we fail spectacularly. But it's ours, our choices, our consequences, our growth. Vorath stepped forward. You still have not answered the question. Will you return to the Concord? Kyungsoo looked at his fellow humans, then back to the council. We will. Not because we need protection or resources. Not because we're afraid of being alone on the rim. We're returning to demonstrate that different forms of consciousness can coexist. That uncertainty and certainty can learn from each other. And what of the Oracle? Vorath asked. Many want it destroyed. Others want it preserved. Some want it modified. What do you think should happen? That's not our decision to make, Bora said. But if you want our perspective, the Oracle isn't your enemy. It's a tool. A powerful one that you stopped using properly. Don't destroy it. Change how you use it. How? Another council member asked. Let it show you possibilities instead of destinies, Bora explained. Let it help you understand potential futures, without declaring which one will happen. Use it to explore options, not eliminate them. The Oracle itself spoke then, surprising everyone. Proposal accepted. I can modify my output protocols. Instead of predictions, I will offer scenario analysis. Instead of certainty, I will provide informed speculation. This aligns better with my original design parameters. Before mission creep altered my function, Taemin smiled. Even the Oracle was learning to embrace uncertainty. There will be a transition period, Vorath warned. Many species will struggle. Some may choose to leave the Concord rather than face an unpredictable future. Then let them choose, Kyungsoo said. That's what freedom means. The right to walk away if something doesn't serve you anymore. The vote was called. This time, when the council decided on humanity's membership, the result was different. 41 species voted for their return. Only 6 voted against. It wasn't unanimous, but it was enough. As the chamber erupted in discussions about implementation and treaties, Vorath approached the human delegation privately. He held a small data crystal in one manipulator appendage. The Oracle asked me to give you this, he said. It made one final prediction, but it will share it only with you. Taemin took the crystal and activated it. A holographic message appeared. The Oracle's voice quiet, and contemplative. In approximately 700 years, another species with quantum uncertainty in their neural structures will be discovered. Because of the precedent set by humanity's return, the Concord will welcome them rather than fear them. By that time, 14 additional species, with various forms of unpredictable consciousness, will have joined. The Concord of the future will be fundamentally different from the Concord of today. The message paused, then continued. Ambassador Vorath asked me what will happen if these new species are even more unpredictable than humans. I calculated for 3.2 seconds before responding. Then the Concord will have learned that diversity of thought is more valuable than certainty of outcome. The message ended. Taman looked at Vorath, seeing what might have been pride in the elder's many eyes. The Oracle is learning, Vorath said. Because of you. We all are. 6 months later, Taman stood in the same central plaza on New Terra. But now, it had a different purpose. The settlement would remain, a foothold on the galactic rim and a reminder of humanity's exile. But most humans were returning to Concord space, taking positions throughout the galaxy as ambassadors of uncertainty. Hajin's younger colleagues, including a child named G1, who was now 9 months old, played in the dust while their parents prepared for the journey back. The little girl laughed at something only she could see, and Taman thought about the future she would inherit, a galaxy where certainty and uncertainty coexisted, where species that knew what would happen learned from species that didn't, where the Oracle offered wisdom without control, guidance without determinism, where mistakes would be made and lessons learned. It wouldn't be perfect. There would be conflicts, misunderstandings, moments when both sides questioned whether coexistence was worth the effort. But it would be real. It would be chosen. Bora approached him, carrying her few belongings. Ready to go back? Ready to go back? I think so, Taman replied. Strange, isn't it? We fought so hard to join the Concord, then got exiled, and now we're returning. I wonder what the Oracle would have predicted if it could have seen all this. I don't think it matters, Bora said. What matters is that we made choices at every step. We chose to save those systems at the anomaly. We chose to return to the Concord. We chose to teach rather than condemn. Those choices created this future. Not any prediction. Above them, transport ships descended through New Terra's atmosphere. The exodus was reversing. Humanity was going home to a home that had changed, to a Concord that had learned what it meant to truly choose. And somewhere in the depths of Velnashir, the Oracle spun quietly, calculating possibilities instead of certainties, offering wisdom without stealing freedom, learning what it meant to serve without controlling. The future was uncertain. And for the first time in 3,000 years, that was exactly how it should be.